I recently, yes, recently, definitely not over 6 months ago by now, finished Dark Souls 2, the most underappreciated and overhated game in the franchise. But ever since I posted my Dark Souls 2 video, people only cared about one thing, the DLCs. And some of you have no media literacy whatsoever, complaining that I forgot about the DLCs when at the end of the video I said that it would be coming in the future. And it's here now. Dark Souls 2 has 3 DLCs, the Crown of the Sunken King, Crown of the Iron King, and Crown of the Ivory King, released in that order. And naturally I played it in the arbitrary order that I wanted to, starting with the Crown of the Ivory King. During my base game run, I accidentally wandered into the Arctic, so it only seems fitting to start there. Plus, it's the holidays when this comes out, and I'm from Canada, so let's start chilly and work our way warmer. You know, for the vibes. Hey, do you want this shirt? Or do you want this shirt? Or do you want this shirt? Or how about this hat? Well, if you want any of these shirts, you can go to burd69.store, and if you use code DS2IsPeak at checkout, you'll get 15% off your entire order. The coupon code will last at least until the new year, and until I forget to disable it, so who knows. Again, that's code DS2IsPeak at the checkout. Buy one for your grandma, or something. I don't know. Also, like, comment, subscribe, and become a member. Okay, bye. The Shrine of Winter drops me off in the frozen tundra, and much like Bear Grylls, this is man versus wild. Except my character is a woman, and I don't have to drink my own pee. The bloodstains at the beginning filled me with dread, not that there was a threat looming, but clearly these people had about 6 or 7 brain cells if they're dying this early. I trudged on through the snow, and I must say the frosted tips on my little tootsies was a nice touch. I find myself a nice bonfire exactly 30 steps into the DLC, and then Jack Frost starts nipping at my nose. And by Jack Frost, I mean a mysterious lady, and by nipping at my nose, I mean bringing forth an act of God in the form of a brutal ice storm, and basically telling me to f*** off. I hate it when games tell you to turn back. Like, what if I did, huh? What you gonna do? I push on and find myself at a fog gate, seemingly getting closer to the person behind the voice, and more importantly, closer to the source of the Cobalt 5 gum. My senses are definitely stimulated. And I don't know what an Ava is, but I feel like they're trying to employ reverse psychiatry. I quickly found out what an Ava is. It's the king's pet, and she is invisible. This might actually be worse than Priscilla, especially with no toes at the start. I took some magic to the face and then decided this may be time to use the old age feather that I never keep in my hot bar no matter how many times it gets me killed. Oops. Using my keen observation skills and context clues, I carefully deduced that there might just be something I can find that would make it easier to take out Richard Parker over there. The ice guys have a cool design, but once again, the enemies in Dark Souls 2 just kind of run around a little funny. It's like the AI doesn't know what it wants to do. I know what I want to do though, smash them. And my big slab of sheet metal, much like Nigel Thornberry, smashes quite well. Smack first, ask questions later. I make my way through the streets of Toronto, taking out the big glorified icicles as I go until I reach my one weakness, my greatest foe, my Dark Souls kryptonite. Dogs. Frozen dogs. Frozen Elim Lois dogs. The dogs from the hit movie Snow Buddies. And for those of you who don't know, Snow Buddies is like the cold version of Air Bud. Also, did you know there's like 14 Air Bud movies? Anyway, further into chilly lower Undeadburg, I'm reminded how much I love aggro in Dark Souls 2. Why is the guy that's twice as far away getting angry first? I'm not sure if my character getting frosty has negative effects on my stats or my stamina recovery speed or anything, but I do like that the longer I stay out in the snow, the more I look like the little snowman from Knick Knack. If you get that one, I love you. And I am just as determined as that little guy, but my motives might be a little more pure. Death and destruction. I find my way inside to warm up and introduce myself to some of the locals who are doing the same thing. And the chesticles on the roof give me the vibe that we're going to be doing some serious thawing out when we find whatever it is that'll thaw this place out. I clear out a few more enemies and dogs, and I was going to make another joke about some sort of movie or pop culture reference with cold dogs or like huskies or sled dogs, and then all I started to think about was 8 Below and how f***ed up that movie was and how I watched it at such a young age. Why'd they make us watch 8 Below? Anyway, that movie was rough. Elim Lois was feeling kind of like a maze. Inside and outside, everything kind of looked the same due to the fact that it was blizzarding. But eventually, I made myself to a nice little bonfire. I lit a torch because I was curious if it would reduce the frost buildup effect on my character, and I found out, you know, astutely, that you probably can't take a torch out in a blizzard. Go figure. I pulled the old lever to lift a gate and found a room with a bunch of goodies and a mimic mid-suck. You ever see a mimic mid-suck? Well, you just did. I pulled another lever to lift an elevator with boxes that was previously blocking my path. Don't know if I showed it previously, but I did it. Then I killed a Megalois soldier, almost breaking my hunk of metal in the process. Oh, how I love the lock-on in this game. At least now I know what I'm doing wrong. I have been informed. but it doesn't mean I'm gonna stop complaining about it. I'm a Souls player, damn it. I accidentally dropped off a point of no return, but it was a good thing because the mysterious waifu once again told me to get lost, which means I'm going in the right direction. Everybody wants to be my enemy. Oh, the misery. I got absolutely from softwared before deciding to investigate a giant fire that looked like key progression, and I found absolutely nothing. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, there was 1 millisecond where it showed the prompt pick up on a certain key item that maybe I don't get right now. But I don't know, how come when I'm literally rubbing fronts with the skeleton that's laying there dead, it doesn't say pick up. But when I'm on this very specific angle on the side, and it says pick up, but there's a bunch of messages because freaking online people suck, but they were probably telling me that it was, it was an important item, but I don't pick it up. Not for a while. I continued on, thinking that I would find what I needed elsewhere, so buckle up. I tussled with some invisible enemies, and unlike Ava, I put them down in the snow, and then I pressed on and lit a bonfire and continued through the maze of the interior, trying to be resourceful as I went. Throwing pots in this game are cheeks, huh? I got invaded by a holy knight, and I wish I was using a rapier so I could turn them into a holy knight. Like a knight with holes in it. Or sing him a Christmas carol. Oh, holy knight. But alas, my sword is massive and unimpressive, and I give the holy knight a lowly smite. To my unfortunate surprise, the maze of the interior led back to the beginning of the level. And surely I wasn't missing anything. I ran around for an eternity, trying to find anything that I could have missed. Anything. And I even gave Ava another go while she was invisible. I got a few hits in, but needless to say, it did not go well. It was like trying to cross a highway and getting hit by an 18-wheeler over and over and over. Except it's winter, and the 18-wheeler is invisible. I remembered the lever from earlier that removed the debris from my path, and it was just a spell. A useless spell that will rot in my inventory for the rest of eternity. I wandered around outside until I discovered the mouth of a cave, and I bravely went forward and found myself the old bell helm. I feel very awakened right now. Apparently, though, I awakened the idiot within myself because I thought, what if wearing the silver cat ring would allow me to see the invisible cat? And no, the pillars do not act as adequate cover. Someone tell this guy he's an idiot. After way too long, I finally returned back to the ominous fire to give it a proper inspection. And would you believe it? There was an item there the whole time. Who knew there was an item there? Not me. Definitely not me. With the Eye of the Priestess in my possession, it was finally time to take on Tony the Tiger with my great sword. Turns out, being able to see the boss makes it, well, easier, and my sword was doing insane damage to Ava, over 600 to be exact. And I was putting in work. I achieved inner peace. I was in the flow state. Perfect dodges and swift counterattacks. It also helped that my adaptability is 35. Ava does not have that many moves, and most of them are very well telegraphed when you can actually see them coming. I got caught off guard by a couple swipes of the paw, but my life gem spamming kept me going just long enough to put her down on my first real try. But I can't say it was my first try because my dumbass thought you had to fight her blind. Oh well, you live and you learn. That's what life's about. With Tigress dead, I pushed on to meet Alsana, and told her I was the true dragon warrior. I didn't know her name was Alsana, but I googled it. She gave me a little bit of a lore dump, but all I could think about is whether or not she had shoes on. But she did me a solid and made the ice liquid, and I assume this means I can go and explore previously unexplorable places. Yippee! My first unfrozen chest had the vessel shield. I googled that one too, because I didn't use it for a single second. Turns out it's pretty OP, has decent stat boosts, and can deflect spells. Instead of exploring though, I thought it would be a really good idea to dive headfirst into an area called the Old Chaos. Surely, I was very prepared for the atrocities that were about to take place here. It was me and my buddy versus the world, and then all of a sudden my buddy cast Cone of Cold on themselves. They sealed up a portal to darkness, but left me to fight an entire army by myself, and it did not go well, so maybe it's time to explore a little bit. Now that the land was sufficiently defrosted, it felt nicer to traverse. But all of those people in the robes that previously seemed docile weren't so friendly anymore. I also had the most insane smack of my greatsword and hit 2 dogs behind me. Just call me Cloud in Super Smash Bros. 4. Am I right? I made it back to some previously frozen chests and found a twin blade that you can cast spells with. Maybe the coolest thing ever. I didn't use it even a little bit. Back to the task at hand, I found the Dark Souls 2 equivalent of the Bone Wheel Skeletons. You know, other than the actual Bone Wheel Skeletons in Dark Souls 2. They're little hedgehogs in the snow, and they do a lot of damage. This dude with the lance also made it their personal mission to hunt me down and inconvenience me in every way possible. Thrusting damage is kinda crazy, huh? I ran past the Covetous Demon 2.0, more hedgehogs, and then turned around and showed Mr. Lance that my arms were strong. I then went back to take out the demon, pick up my loot, and carry on my way. Word, son. I keep getting distracted and have the directional sense of a wet napkin. At least in Dark Souls. I fought some more hedgehogs and some very upsetting soul-sucking giants before making my way up to free my first Lois soldier. I had some more seats to fill at my round table. Or I guess my round portal waiting area thing. It's not really a table. But I push on to free more Lois soldiers and strengthen my army. Although I couldn't help but get a little bit distracted by loot along the way, and I was absolutely violated by a mimic. Lots of wandering around later, I absolutely frick up Donna, and Knights 3 and 4 go to seek the Chaos, and I seek the crown of an Ivory King. But not before I seek one of those ice weapons that the local folk use to poke. I equipped the Symbol of Avarice that I also found somewhere in Frozen Elam Lois and my gold serpent ring and tried to farm for it. And I forgot that after a while, after a certain amount of kills, I think it's 12, enemies stop respawning. And I was too lazy to bonfire ascetic, so I just gave up and cried. I rallied the troops for the battle of a lifetime, and we fought valiantly, pushing back the forces of the charred Lois Knights and sealing their impending portals of doom. With 4 knights, it was a breeze, easily staying on top of the enemies as they spawned, and they had my back when I needed them most. And then, with all the portals sealed, it was time to come face to face with the Ivory King himself. The king was fast and nimble and had a lightsaber. Thankfully, I had one more knight with me to pull a little bit of aggro, but unfortunately, after the grab attack and panicking like an idiot, I was face-tanking hits and life gem spamming to no avail. The openings weren't there, and I went down like an idiot, fighting for my life just to pop a few life gems. The Burnt Ivory King was a foe unlike any other in the base game, a boss that was actually a challenge. And I'll be honest, the gimmick, it was fun at first, you know, teaming up, big team fight, closing the portals, yada yada, super fun, for like maybe the first 1 or 2 attempts, but the novelty wears off. Not that it took me a bunch of tries or anything. I do big damage, but the boss has the Darkwood Grain Ring and is Havel flipping around with a damn energy sword. This DLC boss was maybe the first time I had seen an actual combo in Dark Souls 2, aside from maybe the Smelter Demon. But it was clear that I would have to actually learn some moves instead of just popping crack rocks and hoping for the best. I had a handle on my greed. I only took single R1s because my attacks, in this fight, felt slower than One Piece pacing. And old Radiant Life Gems helped me out-heal any damage that I could not dodge on my own with my insanely high adaptability. I improvised, I adapted, and I overcame all over the Burnt Ivory King. It was time to claim my crown, talk to Mommy back in the entrance hall, and be done with the first DLC. But not before I took a trip to Ornifex to get the Ivory King's Ultra Greatsword. Oh, wait. There's more to the Winter Wonderland? Well, I'm sure one more boss can't be that bad, huh? Surely the area won't be full of bloodthirsty reindeer that hunt you down to the ends of the earth and also have the power of lightning, right? Before I go investigate that, I did a little respec at Grandma's house, traded with the crows, got my hands on Cloan's rocks, and then upgraded my new sword. But then I quickly realized that the durability on this thing drains faster than an airport toilet at 30,000 feet. I don't think the altitude is relevant, but it felt more impactful. I wandered around for an eternity, lit some torches, gained access to Superman's Fortress of Solitude, defeated some Flexile sentries, and then got my hands on a key. A key that led me to a nice classic From Software coffin warp. What do we do when we can't link 2 places together with level design? Coffin. Welcome to the show. This place may just be worse than the Shrine of Amana, but for the sake of brevity and enjoying the holidays with your loved ones, I'll reduce it down to a little song, a little ditty if you will. Dashing through the snow with no plan of attack, let me summon my friends who surely have my back. Reindeer on our ass, endless hills in sight, what fun it is to dodge and swing this sword with all my might. Oh, Dark Souls 2, I hate you, whose idea was this? Even with the summons here, it really makes me pissed. Who thought this through? Dark Souls 2, listen, I'll be curt. I never want to come back to the frigid outskirts. Happy holidays. Sometimes it makes me sad that hours of my life is reduced to a 30-second bit, but it's probably better that than you watching me make snow angels for the better half of an evening. To top it off, though, at the end of this frosted flake of a hellscape, Ava is back. Or, Blood and Zelen, I guess. How original. I mean, the names are original, but really? Honestly? A double cat encounter? Are we serious? I wasn't entirely sure how to send Vengarl home, so he kind of overstayed his welcome and helped me pet the titties. The fight was honestly a bit underwhelming after the absolutely brutal and treacherous path it took to get here, but I also doubt that I would be saying that if I happened to do this fight solo. I secretly appreciated the help, and I was at the end of my rope. Oh, he used summons. Oh, I can't watch this video. He used summons. Shut up. I'm enjoying my From Software game how I want to enjoy my From Software game, and you can sit there and watch me do it from your special chair. Calvin and Hobbes go down with ease, and yes, I'm aware that only Hobbes is a tiger. The Calvin and Hobbes reference doesn't really make sense, but I'm running out of jokes and you just have to bear with me. And finally, after that, I never have to step foot in Frozen Elamlois ever again. Well, until the next Dark Souls 2 run. I made my way to the gutter and found the entrance to the next DLC with no problem whatsoever. No problem at all. It's time for DLC 2, which was actually DLC 1, at least in release order. That's right, baby. It's time for the crown of the Sunken King. Who's up sinking their king right now? The immediate canted angle of the path signifies to me, as the player, that things may not be as they seem. That's right. I'm a film student. Drop out. I found the city of Shulva. I found it. And no one will ever know. This is not a puzzle. No more puzzles. We're all gonna die. Or it can just be me. Tell them I found it. Any National Treasure 2 enjoyers in the chat? Let me tell you what, I would rather traverse Atlantis in Kingdom Hearts 1 on the original control scheme than even begin to explain what my thought process was during this entire area. It was like you can hit the little glowing pillars, and then they twist and change the architecture of the area. I was literally just smacking anything that glowed. Some things rose, some things fell, new paths opened, new paths closed. All I know is I was running my little curse bearer booty through this area as fast as I could. I took lots of fall damage and made very unsafe choices. The enemies weren't too bad, but the bugs were kind of upsetting. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. And you're never gonna keep me down. A few Chumbawambas later, I finally advanced to the interior of the Ocean Monument, staying very vigilant and watching out for guardians. But I was happily greeted with the soothing singing of a lady who definitely won't turn out to be some cursed, horrid monster that wants me dead later on. Regardless, I find myself in a most brutal and unforgiving labyrinth of an area, and it's time to be all sneaky beaky and sneak around, carefully crafting my next move, and then absolutely freak the f out because I didn't know these big guys were real enemies. How foolish of me. Moment of appreciation for Dark Souls 2, I think the mechanic of hitting the corpse to make the enemy ghosts tangible is very fun and fresh and cool. Little did I know that Hornsent from Gravesite Plain learned his moves in Shulva. I found some goodies, including the helmet of my beloved Onion Knight, and then another chest. Decided I was just having way too much fun. I don't know if there was a closer bonfire to where I was headed, but the run back to the interior sent me into a pit of despair. But, I love a good parry, so it wasn't so bad. I pushed some buttons to advance further, got gaslit by an online message, and then used my absolutely massive brain and a ginormous IQ to push another button. This place is like if Sen's Fortress had no whimsy. Where's my boulder? Where's my snake man? Where's my tin can at the top that I can kill with gravity? This place just wants to turn me into Swiss cheese. I also forgot that I'm poisoned, and for some reason my character just has no urgency to drink their literal life-saving Sunny D. A floor full of spikes seemed a little unappetizing, so I decided to take my chances with bugs covered in oozing pustules. It was not the right call. Imagine they also drained my durability with that mist that they're producing. Oh wait, I cleared out the room and celebrated a little early, and then made my way to the top where I found a ring. But I doubt I'll be needing that. My brain only grows as I use a bow to hit yet another button. Except this time, It was high up. It opened a secret door and I found a sick sword, the puzzling sword. Peculiar, even. It was bioluminescent, half sword, half whip. It kind of reminded me of the Nox flowing weapons from Elden Ring. Gosh, Elden Ring really is just Dark Souls 2 too. Sorry, Dark Souls 2 as well. This place really only has one gimmick, a true test of my FPS skills. Unfortunately for me, the spikes on the floor are still erect. Guys, erect just means upright, okay? Don't be weird. I got caught in a very intense shootout with one of the lady mages and channeled my inner Call of Duty head glitcher to come out on top. And if the spiky floor wasn't bad enough, this place was also full of those invisible, unhittable enemies. I channeled my inner Joseph Joestar until I came face to face with Thomas. I mentioned the right Joestar this time. You're welcome. And there can only be one jester in these parts. It's me. I braved the fog wall with Zero Estus, preparing myself for a brutal boss encounter, and it turns out I just got warped to Lost Izalith. But if someone turned Lost Izalith into Splish Splash Water Park. And also put heads on the dragon asses? What are we doing? Why are we putting heads on the dragon asses? What is this place? Did we not learn from Lost Izalith? Did we not learn from our mistakes? With Zero Estus in a dream, I boldly ran across that ankle-deep water, finally making it to a bonfire and finding peace, before my Twitch chat started yelling at me to switch weapons and finally break the Saintier's spear. You know, the lousy spear that I got from the Doors of Pharos. So I went to Snuggly's nest and smacked it for about 3.5 minutes to get my rocks off the spear, because there are rocks on the tip of the spear. My new and improved broken Saintier's spear had a sick twin blade moveset, and I felt like Darth Maul from the hit movie Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. And the people online better watch out, because I was going to be one menace of a phantom. I didn't actually invade, but I like picking the low-hanging fruit. I also went to McDuff and made it raw. Next question. Back in the Dragon Sanctum, I took damage from the sheer breath of this guy, and then made my way to a puzzling stone. Not to be confused by the puzzling sword. But I had no dragon stone in my inventory. I even asked Emmy and Max, and they had no idea what it was either. Dragon Tales, it's almost time for Dragon Tales. Come along, take my hand, let's all go to Dragonland. I took an elevator, reminiscent to the ones in Ulasil in Dark Souls 1, and it took me to another elevator. We're going up. Up, up, it's our moment. You know, together we're glowing. Gonna be golden. Doesn't sound as good when you don't sing it. And then I was spit out at the first bonfire in the area. So, yippee. I think I'm starting to like the Saintier's spear. I was shredding these idiots and looking really cool doing it. I take back my lousy spear comment. The backstab animation, easily one of the top 5 coolest backstabs in Dark Souls 2. Up the rear with the Saintier's spear. Put that one on a t-shirt. As I was cleaning up with style, I was rudely shot in the head with a poison projectile and it rang my bell. Like actually, literally, when you get headshot with the bell helmet, it rings like it's a bell. Kind of makes me want a Doritos Locos Taco. Great, now I want another one. I don't actually like Taco Bell, but it fits. I dropped down to what I thought was the next logical platform, but I don't think I was supposed to come down here. However, I was determined to make it out of my predicament, and I finally found something else to shoot. This DLC really, it just has the one gimmick. If you came here without a bow, you'd just be screwed. It was also at this point that I learned you can't ADS with a bow if it's in your offhand, for some reason. I don't know why that's a thing, but in case you were wondering, why can't I ADS with my bow? Is it in your offhand? Probably. Anyway, this was the path that leads to the freaky tree that likes getting whipped and will repair your equipment if you whip it. But I didn't know that at the time, so I didn't whip it. I was clearly missing something inside of the big huge temple, so it was back to the land of spikes on the floor, enemies that I can't hit, and mages that bring out my hatred for the Ulasil sorcerers. I stumbled upon the resting ground of Casper and his friends and desecrated all those graves like I was Dean Winchester. Or Sam Winchester. Either Winchester. No spoilers, please. I'm on Season 1. It also pleases me greatly when I can backstab an enemy that feels a lot larger than I am. Another point to the Dark Souls 2 cool score. Up the rear with the Saintier's spear. During all of that commotion, I also happened to pick up an Eternal Sanctum key. Obviously, a very important key item that I will surely put to use later. And then I thought this chest was a mimic, and I accidentally made whatever was in it into rubbish. So, if you could tell me what I missed, as long as it's not something awesome, if it's something awesome, just lie, for the sake of my sanity. With the ability to make short work of the big guys, I braved the trek across the floor of Legos and found my dragon stone. And I found the switch to turn off the floor spikes. Way later than it was useful. Of course, it was in another place that only a bow could reach, and oh, what's that? Another button that you can only hit with a bow? Golly gee, oh my. This last door led me to what the Dark Souls 2 haters are in. Denial. I wish with all my heart to fly with dragons in a land apart. Absolute cinema. I crossed my newfound bridge to hit the sanctum from another angle, and I went down and down and down and failed to kill some crystal lizards, and then went down some more and wound up at a fog gate. Finally, after this whole time, it's been so long, I was finally rewarded with a boss fight. And this run back would really suck, so let's just first try the boss. I was finally face to face with the source of all the lovely singing, but she was not lovely. Ilana, the squalid queen. I don't know the lore here, but basically she's Nashandra with a hammer instead of a scythe. Based strength build. The Saint-Tier spear was fast, but not doing the most damage in the world. I mean, okay damage, but not the damage that I was used to with the greatsword. The thing about fast attacks is my P-brain thinks that I can just keep spamming them forever, and then not have any stamina or availability to dodge when I need to. Her magic attacks were pretty easy to dodge. She has the volley of, like, dark bead, and then the fire bombs that she likes to spawn right next to you, but don't detonate for like 5 seconds. I absolutely caved and went back to my greatsword. Alright, you can take the build out of the strength, but you can't take the strength out of the build. That doesn't make sense. And you know what else is a super fun mechanic of a boss that loves to spam magic attacks? That's right, summoning. She started off by summoning a group of skeletons, and they were easy enough to dispatch, and then she decided, why don't I just summon Veldstat? I didn't know they were tight like that. I was ass blasted to a sliver of health, but determined to lock in. I figured it was easier to dodge her and one big guy versus her and a group of skeletons, and I didn't even pay any attention to Veldstat. I was just chunking Ilana for any damage I could at any opportunity, and it felt really good to do over 600 damage in an R1 again. Veldstat didn't understand the rules of no puppy guarding during grounders though, and I was doing a fair bit of cardio in between my slashes. My dodges were clean, my patience was elite, and my life gem spam was on point. After a few minutes of smacks to Nashandra's slightly less upsetting sister, she goes down the first try. Immediately after her was another fog gate, and I wound up in the cave of Sin, the slumbering dragon. When I wished to fly with dragons, this was not what I had in mind. I would very much like to rescind my wish, please and thank you. But there was no time like the present to make this dragon live up to his name and take a forever nap. The damage to the dragon was kind of nuts, almost 700. And the moves kind of reminded me of Calamite, except with way more AoE on that fire breath. Dare I say Hawkeye Goff shot this one too? What's the lore on that? Can I get a fact checker in here? Until further notice, I'm just going to assume that Goff shot Calamite and Sin, and any other dragon in the universe. That dude's awesome. Clearly this guy was still waking from his slumber because a lot of the attacks were super slow, giving me ample time to get my hits in. It's just that damn fire hitbox. But I adapted as the fight went on. I was feeling myself. I was in the zone. I was him. Dodging fireballs, smacking some dragon ass, and breaking my sword? Sure, I guess. That's neat. I swapped to my other plus 10 greatsword as I was running. Yes, I keep another plus 10 greatsword in my back pocket in case of emergencies such as this. The music was swelling, my triumphant moment almost here. 2 first try bosses in a row. And then I got hit by the fire of a strafing run, and then Sin took a seat on my head. Just a sliver of a boss health bar between me and greatness. And you know what? After this, I got the yips. You know what happens? You have a good boss run, and then you have like 5 really, really bad ones. You need the humbler. You can't let your ego get too big. You need to have a few reality checks. The game needs to remind you that you're the player, not the boss. So after a few more deaths to this sleepy guy and a very, very greedy final hit, Sin takes his final slumber, and I claim the crown of the Sunken King and finish the DLC. And I definitely did not miss a boss. You can't make me go back and do an NPC fight. It was time for DLC number 3, the Crown of the Old Iron King, and I very nimbly make my way to the Primal Bonfire just past the Old Iron King? I don't get it. What's the lore here? We killed the Old Iron King in the base game, but then his crown is the DLC. Is there a second Iron King? Are there 2? There's 2 the Old Iron King and the New Iron King? I embrace Mesmer Snakes once again and enter the 3rd DLC. Well, the second DLC in release order. They really ended Dark Souls 2 on Frozen Elm Lois. That was the note. The Frigid Outskirts and Lud and Zelen. That was people's last Dark Souls 2 moment. I can kind of see why people hate this game. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kiln of the First Flame has reached the Industrial Revolution. Oh look, it's an Elden Ring reference. Oh, that's totally me when I light my girlfriend on fire. I'm swiftly introduced to the mechanic of inserting smelter wedges into the Withering Whispering Women because the game gave me one right before this, and also because my stream chat kept backseating me. In fact, through the entirety of all these DLCs, they were backseating any chance they could, and I banned a lot of people. But if you never see me stream a first playthrough of a game ever again, that's why. I make my way down the tower thinking surely this DLC won't be as confusing and convoluted as the Sunken one, but the white ash piling up everywhere gives me war flashbacks to Frozen Elm Lois. I can't help but keep using my greatsword, you know, it feels wrong to ditch it after so long, after all we've been through together. Also, if you want to play a fun game, please drink responsibly, get ready to take a sip anytime I say we're going down. Anyway, I go down a few ladders and encounter this floating bow guy. Goodbye, floating bow guy. And then I carefully scope out my next move before performing a sick plunge attack. But then I forget that plunge attacks don't actually exist in Dark Souls 2, and I'm sent packing on my way. I try for a second time, and it goes, well, exactly like you'd expect, probably. But I decided to make a break for it and ignore everybody in favor of pulling a lever. I love pulling levers, and pulling this one led me to some poggy-woggy level progression and the wall breakers from Clash of Clans. They do indeed explode. I don't know why I keep trying to make Alluring Skulls work. I feel so proud of myself using my consumables instead of hoarding them to the end and then never actually using anything. But sometimes when I use a consumable and it's just dog, I never want to do anything ever again. It's like Miyazaki himself reaching through my monitor just to flip me off. Anywho, guess where we're going? That's right, down. I'm taking care of business like I'm Mrs. Doubtfire, light a little bonfire, and then encounter my first fog gate, and lucky me, more level. I decided to run through the horde of scary-looking enemies and let them duke it out amongst themselves. I like when they can hurt each other. I use a smelter wedge to stab another lady and... Oh, are you telling me the mechanic from the Sunken King DLC is also in this DLC? We have enemies that aren't tangible until you interact with a certain mechanic introduced within the DLC and then they're hittable? Holy! Now that's what I call gaming. Another lever is pulled and I encounter my least favorite enemy type in this DLC, the bird-looking ladies who also have lightning powers and look like they can one-shot me and are definitely on the top of my Hear Me Out cake right next to Ornifex. Anyway, I panic ran through the entire area and died as I was trying to traverse a fog gate. Definitely deserved. The second time, though, I wanted to outsmart the game, jump down, and avoid the ladies altogether, but it turns out I was the one who was outsmarted in the end. I finally decided it was time to put on my big boy pants and brave the enemies, and that's when I found out that these things can teleport. Very upsetting. Also, they kind of remind me of the Black Knife Assassins from Elden Ring. Anyone else? I made it to the fog gate expecting a boss, but turns out it was more level. But I had no Scorching Iron Scepter in my comically large Jester pants. I left it in the other pair, so I had no choice but to press onwards. I made it to the old puzzle part of Broom Tower, and I can't be the only one who thinks these statues look like the bull's trying to suck its own dick. I'm not smart. I love puzzle games. I love Souls games. But as soon as you start putting puzzles in my Souls games, my brain really doesn't know what to do with the information. I definitely figured it out all on my own and not because people were backseating me again in the stream chat, but turns out you can smack the self-suck bulls and send them down the rail in order to kill the enemies. Or at least damage them a good amount. That chatter is now banned. The lightning lady took it personally though and decided to bring the wrath of Zeus down upon my head. I disposed of a big dude at the end and pulled a lever to open a shortcut. Or the way forward, I don't know, maybe both. And for a change of pace, we go up this time instead of down. And I ignored a lever that probably might have been useful at some point. I entered another fog gate and accidentally interrupted a meeting of Discord Mods Anonymous, and I tried to see myself out, but they really wouldn't let this one go. I had to bring down the ban hammer, and then waste some flame butterflies to light these torches before getting invaded by Rachel, who seemed to elude me for quite some time. Where's Rachel? She was down and tried to buff, but there's no buffing in my lobby, so I absolutely backstabbed and then parried her into oblivion. My bad, Rachel. I then found myself as a contestant on the world's most upsetting game show. Behind door number 1, pain and suffering. Behind door number 2, explosive enemies and a little ladder. Behind door number 3, an assassin just as a little treat. I think I'll take the ladder. And my prize at the end? That's right, a spare Scorching Iron Scepter. I'll take that, thank you. I used it to revive Broom Tower and just listen to that baby purr. I I don't know, that's what people say when they like turn on engines and stuff. It was also at this point I was told the Blossom Kite Shield was really good and basically the Grass Crest Shield of Dark Souls 2. And I didn't realize that the stamina regeneration you gain from the Blossom Kite Shield basically counteracts the stamina regeneration loss of the weight of the equipment, so it just cancels itself out. Thank you, Dark Souls 2. With the tower brought to life, I now had access to explore very fun areas. I took out this guy with the world's most overcooked turkey leg, put my wedge in this lady, and found the life ring +3. At this point, I really wanted to fight a boss, and I was also curious about what new paths might have opened, so I warped back to the top of the tower to go down it once again. This DLC feels very vertical. I reached the furthest that I had ever been, took out some more chicken wing wielders before I was awarded with one of my very own, and can I just say, this thing's heavy attack might just be the greatest thing that I have seen in this entire game. I grabbed the bonfire in the Iron Passage and decided against pulling the lever. It was time for more gank fights in tight spaces, anyone's favorite part of any Souls game. I'm glad I'm not a mage build because these trigger-happy lightning spammers are all equipped with the Cleric's Parma, the shield that I used in the Shrine of Amana to deflect spells. They can't parry these hands though. I mean, they technically could because they have a shield with a parry skill, but they're bad. And I'm better, and I do more damage. I saw a fog gate and decided to press my luck going through, just hoping it was a boss. And to my pleasant surprise, oh, it's the guy from Night Rain. The Smelted Delta Demon was back for more, and this time it was blue. You know a fire is really hot when the flames are blue. And I definitely forgot this guy's moveset, so the life gems were coming out in full force. I was panic rolling, yes, but I was also smacking this asshole for big damage. I wasn't able to out-heal all of my mistakes though, and my first attempt ended shortly after phase 2 when I mistimed the roll on the ground slam. This boss wasn't going to be that bad though. I actually thought the run back would also be a lot worse, but I soaked a little bit of damage and just holded sprint and was able to make it to the fog gate. Nothing can be worse than Dark Lurker. Or, I guess the Frigid Outskirts now. Almost forgot about that one. Luckily this guy didn't take too many tries, but I do feel like the timing on some of the attacks were different on the blue demon versus the original recipe. The proximity damage felt like it was draining me for more, and even on my winning attempt my dodges weren't perfect, but with enough strength, willpower, and crack rocks that you can spam to make you feel no pain, any boss can be put in the ground. It also helped that my double R1 combo was hitting for 1100 damage. I kind of feel like I'm not doing this boss justice because it was a really fun fight. I loved it. I loved the music, but it just kind of felt like the base game fight. It didn't feel that much different. It was a very close call, but in the end I came out on top. Smelter? I hardly know her. Yippee! I also made a pit stop at Ornifex's house just up the road for the aged Smelter sword. It just looks cool. I didn't use it ever, but look how cool it looks. I did some more parkour in the tower and it led me to holes in the floor, like a dropper map in Minecraft, or like the hit Cartoon Network show that had holes in the wall. I forget what it's called, but it's also not really like that because the holes are in the floor and not in the wall. And when I reached the bottom, I got absolutely laid out by another chicken wing guy, and this chicken wing apparently had 2 more feet of invisible reach at the end of it. But I came back and cheesed him with poison arrows, so who's laughing now? I was led to what looked like the heart of the kiln, and after putting my smelter wedge in a few more ladies and taking out big guys with big maces, I approached a fog gate. And it was time for absolute cinema. It was the Fume Knight. Guys, look, it's a big guy in big armor with a big sword. It's my favorite kind of boss. In phase 1, the attacks were well telegraphed and easy to dodge. I didn't even have to heal. I was in the zone. Phase 2 started, however, and Mr. Fume Knight decided to do a Gwyn cosplay and was doing massive amounts of damage that I was wildly unprepared for. The big slash was slower than I thought and took out most of my health bar. It was a cheeky little mix-up. I thought the coast was clear and I tried to heal, but I ended up getting taken out by the Knight's balls, and I was the one left fuming. The second attempt I was more prepared. I didn't play cautiously enough, and shocker, I went down to moves I didn't know existed. My superb slab of steel was doing over 600 damage per R1 yet again, and I did get greedy in phase 1 where the attacks were generally easier to dodge. The Fume Knight's arsenal was pretty much just slash, wait a little bit, slash again, oh, maybe a double slash here and there, but nothing too fancy. I run into issues with Souls games where I assume something's gonna happen, and then when it doesn't do what I think, I get surprised, if that makes sense at all. I got the Fume Knight under half health, and I went in close to try and punish the phase transition, and then he decided to just do a cheeky little extra slash before blowing his gasket. The slow slash was easily avoided by staying as close as possible, and the balls, I ended up just face tanking them. Nothing wrong with a couple balls to the face. And the rest of the fight is basically just phase 1 moves, but with lingering fire. And for the most part, I feel like the fire is just there to psych you out. It looks cool. It looks like it would do more damage. It looks more threatening, but he's just a guy with a sword. He's just a chill guy trying to psych you out and get your heart rate up and blood pressure rising. I got really lucky on my recovery frames, allowing me to take on another volley of balls, and I was very determined to win. However, the one thing that's generally not a good idea is going to pop a life gem in the boss's face as they're actively winding up a hit. Clearly, I haven't learned that yet. Try number 3 against the Fume Knight was spectacular, no notes. I came out victorious, and it was a very satisfying double R1 to the ass for victory. I turned the Fume Knight into a Tomb Knight. Get it? Because he's dead. I claimed the crown of the Iron King and also got the Fume Knight Ultra Great Sword from Ornifex. Again, I didn't use it, but I really like cool swords. There was one final boss standing between me and the finale of Dark Souls 2. I make my way up the tower and got invaded by Prowlers. I mean, there's only one, but I guess their name was Prowlers. Anyway, kinda looked like Predator from the movie Predator, and I absolutely parried the pants off of him. And then I found out that maybe there's more than one Predator. Maybe there was a whole staircase full of them. And just maybe I ran past everything as fast as I could. And then I came across a very peculiar set of glowing armor. Some may even call it puzzling. Just like the puzzling sword. I examined the armor and entered the memory of the old Iron King. But I killed the old Iron King in the base game, and then I just killed Fume Knight to get the crown of the old Iron King. So like, who the heck am I gonna fight in here? I already know who I fight in here, but it's for the video, I'm pretending like I don't. And I was immediately greeted by a fire salamander and about a dozen Alon Knights. This was not gonna be fun. I decided to summon some friends to help me on my jog to the fog, but they surely were not coming inside the boss arena. Many hands make light work. I popped a human effigy, and myself, steel-willed Lori, and drifter swordsman Adel prepared for battle. We drifted into the dream, or memory, or whatever. I summoned them inside the dream, so they didn't actually come with me. The lion does not concern himself with the proper terminology for things in FromSoft games, and the lion also does not concern himself with the backlash he will get for using summons to help him get to the boss. Especially when the flame salamanders are involved. Lori and Adel were absolutely delightful, but when we got to the end of our journey, I used the separation crystal. No hard feelings, but I had to do this one alone. Mr. Incredible style. But like, the whole point of The Incredibles, I guess, was Mr. Incredible needed help and couldn't do it alone, and shouldn't keep trying to do it alone. So maybe that one doesn't actually fit. This was by far the most cinematic moment of the whole game, and don't mind the bloodstain there. It doesn't count. There was an incident with banishing the NPCs. Sur Alon was the pinnacle of all the DLCs. The view, the arena, the music, the boss. It was all peak. This is what Dark Souls 2 was all about, an insanely fast-paced boss with a sword longer than his health bar. This fight kinda felt intuitive. I knew when to dodge, when my openings were. I knew what I had to do. There were of course still times where I got caught up in the mix, but I recovered and persevered. Oh good, he has magic projectiles, because of course he does. I got caught up in a cycle of trying to heal and catch up, and the life gem spam just couldn't cut it, and I was sent out of the memory. Even with the amount of adaptability I have, it still felt like I was getting clipped by some attacks. And once again, after an insane first attempt at the boss, I was due for a few humblers, looking for that next good attempt. My brain, it just likes to shut off sometimes. We can't be mad, we just have to accept it. Also, if I may interject for a moment to mayhaps lodge a complaint, Sur Alon has the most bull grab hitbox I have ever seen in my entire life. It's atrocious, it's unforgivable, I can be behind him, it doesn't matter. It just... Oh, he got you in the grab. He got you in the grab. That thing sucks harder than Nunu. I still haven't emotionally recovered, and if you get caught in the grab, it buffs him, because of course it buffs him. Of course it buffs him. After a few attempts of blood spilt and full tilt, it finally locked into place. I think it was only 4 or 5 tries, but the run back definitely made it feel longer. On my final attempt, I was caught up in the most bullshit grab in FromSoft history, but even a buffed Sur Alon could not defeat this curse bearer. It was me and my greatsword from No Man's Wharf to the final boss of the final DLC. I never turned my back on that sweet, sweet damage. Except, when I tried other weapons and they were hot ass, but anyway. The hitboxes, for a change, looked at me with favor, and I thought this attempt was as good as gone before his sword stopped an inch away from my undead undercarriage. You can't whiff like that around me and live to tell the tale, buddy. Bro should have gone for the head, but also that would make me Thanos, and I don't agree with him on like a philosophical level. So my patience was perfect, my dodges impeccable, my damage like at least over 600. I was feeling it, except for the little bit at the end there when I whiffed about 18 times because this samurai was way too fast for my insanely slow sword. I was finally able to land the killing blow and I was left in the arena all alone. Like, alone. Get it? I grabbed my final crown, and I have officially beaten all of the Dark Souls 2 DLCs. I definitely did not miss anything. No, you cannot make me go do the NPC fight. I went back to the Undead Crypt and entered Vendrick's memory once again, and he basically called me a good boy and gave me his crown, which is cool. You don't go hollow when you wear the crown, but you can't take it into New Game Plus, so it officially sucks again. I mean, I think you can't go hollow. Maybe it's just you can't look hollow? Who cares? Thank you for watching my playthrough of the Dark Souls 2 DLCs. I'm sorry that it took so long. If I had to rank them from my least favorite to most favorite, it would probably go Ivory, Sunken, and then Iron. I don't know. That's probably what most people say. Sir Alon was definitely the best note to end on. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want. To my members, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next one.